Coming up next on This Week in Computer Hardware, boosting SSD performance, magic cans of air. We've got better tools for cleaning your PC. Last-minute shopping, memory is so cheap. Intel next unit of computing, meh. HP Z1 all-in-one workstation, and more. Coming up next on Twitch.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for Twitch is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Twitch, This Week in Computer Hardware, episode 198, recorded December 20th, 2012. 500 watts of PC cleaning goodness. Welcome to Twitch, This Week in Computer Hardware. I'm your host, Patrick Norton, and this is the weekly show on TWiT where we try to get you the most important and most useful news and advice about computer hardware. Mostly we talk about PCs. We love to talk about laptops. And yes, we cover the tablets too because we all know they're taking over. I'm joined, as always, by Mr. Ryan Shrout of PCPer.com. How are you this evening, sir?
I'm doing great. We had it's getting cold here again. It had been in the 50s the last couple of days. Today it got really windy, and when I went out for dinner, it was like in the 30s. So, and it's snowing, and it's supposed to snow all day tomorrow. So, it's okay. We run enough computers in this office that even when it's 30 degrees outside, we have to turn on the air conditioning. So,
that's always a little frightening.
It's unfortunate.
Well, do you have like 25 PCs running in there at any moment?
Not really. Maybe 5 or 7, something like that, you know, kind of depending, but they're all running game benchmarks, or they're all running transcoding applications and that kind of stuff. So there's not a whole bunch of, when we have computers running, they're not usually idling, I guess is what we'll say.
I was laughing, even idling my Core i7-920, it's been functioning as the data server in my house. So yeah. We just got our furnace replaced. Long story, but basically we didn't have heat for a while. And the furnace is replaced, and I've been laughing because now the rest of the house is as warm as the closet where that server has been sitting. That's highly overpowered server. But I was like, the room would be 45 degrees, and that closet would be 85 degrees just with a single machine running. Just go stand by it
every once in a while. Yeah. Like people used to go open the refrigerator door and stand in front of it on a hot day.
Exactly. Well, you find the cat sleeping with its back pressed up against that closet door.
That's funny. That's good.
This little blissed out feline look on its face. It is, of course, nearing the last-minute deadlines for holiday shopping if you are a celebrator of the Christmas, or Christmas, if you'd like me to say it in an appropriate manner. Friday, Saturday. Friday is kind of like the last recommended overnight day for Amazon. Saturday is, I believe, the last day for overnight shipping or delivery before Christmas. Something you guys were talking about on the PC Per podcast last night. Memory is cheap. I think Alan brought this up. ZOMG is memory cheap.
Yeah, like you can get 8 gigs of memory for like $35. Mm-hmm. You know, two 4 gigabyte DIMMs for like $35, $36. And even going as high as like 32 gigs, you can get that for probably $120 or something like that. You know, if you want to be crazy stupid in terms of memory, maybe get into that whole RAM disk idea and play around with stuff.
We should point out, like, probably 6 gigabytes is a good starting point for most people under Windows 7 or Windows 8 if they're gaming. Yeah. Windows 7, I like 8 gigabytes as a starting point.
There's just no reason not to get 8 gigs at this point. That's the scary thought, right? It's like if you're going to build a system, if you're going to upgrade your PC or whatever, just get $35 worth of memory and you have 8 gigs, and you're going to be great
I was laughing because I had a Core i5 that I was building as another sort of server and rendering box, and with 4 gigabytes of RAM, because the stuff I needed to run on it didn't need much memory. And I was laughing because I was amazed by the transition from Windows 7 to Windows 8. The memory handling under Windows 8 is a little different, and it functioned much better than the same box did with Windows 7, which kind of blew my mind that you would take a step ahead in operating system and memory handling would be more efficient. But yeah, if you're doing any kind of like, I mean, can you justify, I know for video editing, photo editing, or if you like to keep 10,000 tabs open simultaneously because you're a freak when you're researching and using a web browser, is there any reason, or I mean, are any games demanding much more than 8 gigabytes of memory?
No. I mean, the sole exception might be the crazy Minecraft server stuff that you do, and that's because it runs on Java. And Java is not known to be the most efficient platform in the world, so high processor usage, high memory usage would be there. But I mean, no, I mean, you can play Far Cry 3 with 8 gigs of memory, and moving up to 16 won't really affect anything. So, Yeah.
If you've been waiting for an SSD, solid state drive, or if you have someone you know who would like solid state drive, it's a good time to get your solid state drive on. Samsung's 840s, I believe, start at it's kind of funny when you're watching on Amazon as the prices kind of go up and down, seemingly depending on like when the last time you looked at it, what time it is.
Right.
If it's 2 in the morning, if it's 2 in the afternoon. Because I know they're running an algorithm that optimizes what they think is the most amount of money they can get out of it. But you're looking at like the Samsung 840. 120 gigabytes, great drive for your primary drive or C drive on a PC. $90.49 right now, and that is with the Amazon Prime. If you've got all the money, feel free to get the 500. I believe it's a 500 gigabyte 840 for $343. If you want all the performance, Alan Malventano over at PC Part is recommending the new OCZ Vector drives, and they are starting. I thought they had one that was under 100, but it looks like $150 for the 128 gigabyte version. So if you need all the speed, and let me be honest with you, if you're running a rotating drive right now, any SSD is going to blow your mind in terms of performance compared to a traditional hard drive.
If you get, so there's the 840 and the 840 Pro. The 840, which is the one you linked there on the Amazon page. We actually had a deal through Logic Buy, just some deal service, whatever, that we get newsletters from every day, that had the 250 gig version for $149 after an instant coupon, not even like a mail-in rebate, which is really impressive. It's not the fastest. It's not as fast as a Vector, right, but it's going to be really, really fast.
Fast is good.
Yeah.
You guys got a hold of the Intel Next Unit of Computing.
Yes, this thing right here.
And you tested it.
So this is a computer. It's 4 inches by 4 inches by 2 inches is the form factor of the entire system. I guess minus the power brick, right?
Right.
It's an interesting little box. It has some ups and its downs. It's based on laptop hardware, so it's a dual core, hyper-threaded Ivy Bridge processor, 3217U, runs at 1.8 gigahertz. It has mobility components in there, like it has a PCI Express-based wireless card. It has a PCI Express-based, an mSATA PCI Express. What am I trying to say here? An mSATA SSD in there. And then it also has SODIMM memory. So, I mean, everything in here is basically what you would find in a laptop, but it's in a desktop environment. This particular one has 3 USB ports, 2.0, no 3.0 USB ports, an HDMI, and a Thunderbolt connection. And so you can think of some interesting ideas of why that would be cool, right? So you have your display output. You can use Thunderbolt for display. You can use Thunderbolt for connectivity to all kinds of devices, I/O devices, storage devices. It's pretty neat. The problem I have with it is it's a little bit on the expensive side for what you're getting. The bare bones unit, because you actually buy it bare bones and then you have to buy most of the components inside, is about $300 to $320.
Right.
And then you have to buy wireless connectivity, and then you have to buy an SSD, and then you have to buy memory, and you even have to buy a power cord. You don't have to buy the power brick.
Right.
You have to buy a power cord, which is kind of frustrating to me. But I think in total, when we did this review, this system turned out to be about $520. And that's with 4 gigs of memory. That's with a Centrino dual link 802.11n or dual channel wireless adapter. And that's with 180 gig solid state drive in there, which may be a little bit of overkill as well. But $520 is, like, you can get a decent sized notebook or a decent performance notebook for that. I mean, it's very unique. The motherboard inside is very cool. You know, I think what Intel's doing with this, they're going to sell some of these. They're not going to sell a whole lot, would be my guess. Right. But they're trying to use this as a proof of concept. Hey, ODMs. Hey, system builders. People that are looking to build unique computing environments. Look at this 4x4 inch motherboard that has everything you want on it. What can you do with this? Maybe you put this in other systems. Maybe you integrate this into TVs. Maybe you integrate this into displays and mall kiosks and all that other kind of stuff, right? And you get Ivy Bridge-based computing performance. You get kind of decent HD 4000 graphics performance. You get connectivity options. You get the PC x86 environment. And I think, to me, it seems more like, hey, this is a proof of concept maybe they couldn't get anybody to buy in and manufacture this device for them. So they said, fine, we'll pay for it and do it and sell it and all that kind of stuff. Because you don't really see Intel sell a lot of computers directly.
No.
So,
I wonder if it's one of those things where they're looking to preserve their high margin and they thought, gosh, there's all these scenarios where our mobile parts are put into all-in-one desktop PCs and we have the ability to repackage it. So let's package it in some sort of generic white box that people can buy to use for large displays or kiosks, or it's an odd product.
It is.
And I think it's going to be one of those things where it's either going to vaporize in a year because nobody bought any, or it's going to be one of those steady businesses that kind of sits in the corner of Intel raking in cash. But
yeah. We even had a stability problem with ours, which was kind of unfortunate. If you look, I don't know if you can find one of the pictures, Burke, where it shows the SSD and the wireless card. They're kind of stacked on top of each other. And what's unfortunate about the way they designed it, you can see that's the wireless card going in. And a little bit down farther, you'll see one where I have both of them installed. But the controller for the SSD and the controller for the wireless are facing each other. They're like kind of sandwiched on top of each other rather than having one facing up and the other one also facing up, so that you get a little bit, more distance between them. And so when we found that when you did large wireless data transfers, every once in a while it would lock up. And the fact that Intel didn't find that before shipping out these samples, because they supplied the wireless card, they supplied the SSD, they supplied the unit. The only thing that we used ourselves was memory. And the fact that they didn't see that first kind of bothers me some. Yeah, so you can see that's the Intel 520 series mSATA SSD, and that SandForce controller on the left can get, it gets fairly warm, and it's facing down on the wireless controller. So I don't know which one is actually causing the lockup or whatever. But if when we used an external like USB wireless adapter, or we used the Thunderbolt to Ethernet adapter, we had no issues, stability issues at all. So we know it has something to do related to that combination of components. So they said they're going to fix it in a BIOS fix, maybe speed up the fan below it and that kind of stuff. So we'll see. But it's like, for me, this would be cool to. It comes with a Visa mount. You can put it on the back of a TV. You can mount it to a wall. You can mount it anywhere you want. And the form factor can give you a lot of interesting ideas and opportunities. But it's just, if this were $300 total for, maybe they included a 64 gig SSD, and you could, if you wanted to use external storage, you could use network storage, or you could use a USB drive that you already have or something like that. It might make more sense, and more people might be interested in purchasing it. But I don't know, for $500, if you don't mind a much bigger case, at the end of our story, we link you to like a $430 AMD Llano based or a Trinity based system that will have way better computing performance and gaming performance. It just won't be as cool looking as this.
If you need to cools, apparently I don't know. It always amuses me to see a hockey puck PC. I just want to see them as inexpensive as possible.
Yep.
HP Z1 workstation. It's a 27-inch all-in-one system. You guys have a review of it. It's kind of funny. I just reviewed the Lenovo Idea Center A720, and I'm kind of in love with it. I want a higher resolution screen. It's a 1080p screen, so I would like more pixels in my 27-inch monitor. But also, I was kind of fascinated. Well, it's funny. Lloyd Case was so enthusiastic about using a touchscreen monitor. It was fun for me to get hands-on with a touchscreen, like a big 27-inch touchscreen monitor, because the A720, it folds down, so it's like right in front of you like a placemat, and it folds back up, and so it goes up in front of you like a regular monitor. Then you fold it down, and you can sit and sort of play around with things, which is really kind of fun when you're looking at pictures. But the idea of an all-in-one workstation, I mean, are we talking about workstation like gigantic, powerful processors of doom working on massive 3D projects, or workstation like this is an inexpensive office PC?
It's in between that, right? So it kind of has the hopes of being a super monster, 3D modeling machine. It uses a Xeon processor, but it's a Sandy Bridge quad-core hyper-threaded Xeon processor. It's very much on par with like a Core i7-2600K. It uses a Quadro graphics, but it's Quadro 3000M. It uses an MXM module, a mobility platform, and a Quadro 3000M has about the compute performance of like a GTX 560 or so, maybe actually a little bit less because it runs at lower clock speeds.
Ouch? Question mark.
Yeah. So, well, it kind of is for the majority of people that pay attention to what we're saying. So like enthusiasts and consumers and that kind of stuff. If you're a workstation user, think about there's a very specific reason why you buy Quadro and Xeon parts. And it's not because necessarily of the performance. It's because of the verification, the reliability, the support, the software infrastructure behind all that. And so this has been the case with Quadro and FirePro cards forever. If you get a Quadro 6000 from NVIDIA, it is essentially the same GPU that you can buy in a $500 consumer-grade video card. The difference is in the software side and how NVIDIA supports those. And that's still the same case here. The 27-inch screen was awesome. If you watch the video that we posted of it, the ability for it to, when you lay it flat, it's not a touch screen or anything, but when you lay it flat, there's two latches underneath the speakers on the bottom, and the whole case opens up like a pizza box or whatever you want to call it, right? Like the hood of a car, and you can get to every component on this all-in-one system, which I can't really remember anybody ever doing before. You can access the processor, you can access the memory, you can access the graphics card, the power supply, all that kind of stuff. And it's super cool. It's just, it kind of starts in the $1,500 range. The one we tested was like in the $4,000 range. Again, because Quadro and Xeons are just pricey parts. I would love to see this design in a $1,500 kind of spec'd out consumer system here. Yeah, so if you're in this part of the video, you'll see it's laid flat and it's locked, and there's a couple of latches underneath here, and I'll rotate it back around, and you can see that you just pull these latches, and the display part opens up, and you access all these components inside, and it's very clean. It's like a high-end server, how everything just kind of snaps in place. You don't have to worry about screws. You don't have to worry about fan wires. Yeah, it's really awesome. And the idea of having an all-in-one like this where you could upgrade the processor, you could change the graphics card, you could add memory, you could add an extra SSD. Sounds like a great idea to me if we can get it in a little bit lower cost for
because these are also almost all mobile parts, not desktop parts. So there's going to be a premium, there's going to be scarcity, and there's going to be a performance hit compared to desktop parts.
Yep. Yeah, but I mean, it's a very specific market. Chances are most people aren't going to be looking to buy the HP Z1, but if you're the type of person that knows they want a workstation and you're going to have to pay that kind of money anyway, this is a very unique and stylish way to do it. So
it's nice to have options.
Yeah.
One of the downsides of OS X is not the operating system. I love it to death. Is the cost of full-powered desktops, especially for a video editor or a Photoshop guru or just want to render things faster. One of the things that's come out in the past few years that's been great to watch is as Apple has moved to comparatively generic Intel-based CPUs, motherboards, GPUs, there's been a pretty hefty there's been an opportunity finally to figure out ways to manipulate the boot process so that you can build your own Apple machine and run OS X on it and get more performance than one of the cool guy Apple desktops for considerably less money, which brings us to the whole idea of a Hackintosh, which I probably should have said at the beginning. Ken Addison wrote this up for PCPro.com with a step-by-step guide and hardware suggestions based on the excellent work of Tony Mac's x86. If you've never been to the Tony Mac's x86 blog and you are an Apple kind of person, you should go there now because I am deeply fascinated and want to sell something so I could build a mini ITX Macintosh. And it's really funny because essentially you have to have hardware that is exactly compatible with what OS X uses, or OS X is going to sort of spit all over your face. But if the idea frightens you, if you're not sure you want to trust some strange website on the internet with its directions on how to do this, definitely take some time to read up Ken's write-up on PCPro.com because it's awesome. I know at least 3 people that I work with who have built them over the last year and a half, and they were able to afford vastly superior hardware with lots more memory than they would have been able to afford otherwise because they rolled their own OS X box in.
It's interesting because I didn't realize this until we started recording the video and preparing the article, that there's this real empty space in Apple's hardware lineup to begin with. Like you have the Mac Pros that have somewhat dated Nehalem-based parts, no USB 3, no Thunderbolt that kind of stuff, and it's really expensive. And then your next step down is really the highest end iMac, which
exactly
has integrated hardware. There's no mainstream like I want to build a computer
right
kind of market for it. And you get better performance and you save about $700 over the best iMac, and that includes a $400 Korean 27-inch display, which might be a little bit lower quality than the Apple 27-inch display, but not that much. Yeah, not $700 much.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. What I've always found really frustrating is like when you're looking at the iMac's a nice computer, right? And you can get it with a, it's a GTX 675 MX, Core i5, which is great. There's a lot of power to Core i5 unless you're really off the scale and needing computer power. But what really frustrates me. Up until recently, you had serious memory cap issues on the iMac. Finally, or I should say, more recently, you can finally do like 16 gigabytes on the less expensive iMacs, or 16 or 32 gigabytes on the top of the line 27-inch iMacs. 21.5 is capped at 16, 27-inch is capped at 32, which makes them much more usable. But you're still paying $2,000 for a 27-inch monitor, very nice 27-inch monitor. So we can call like $700 of the cost there. But an 8 gigabytes of RAM, a 1 terabyte hard drive, and a Core i5, which I always find a little painful to swallow. Beautiful piece of hardware, beautiful piece of design. Yep. Bring your checkbook. On the upside, it is a high resolution monitor. Which
we made a joke on the podcast last night that we should take our Hackintosh and like take it to the Genius Bar and like set it down. Be like, this software is not working the way it's supposed to, guys. See kind of how they act on that. So
probably possess it for being a vile, gross violation of OS X software licensing. Yeah. How do you feel about Asus looking at doing their own system on a chip with VIA?
So it's actually kind of interesting, right? So VIA is one of these players that has been in the low power business before basically anybody else, right? They were kind of promoting low power and power efficiency.
And low power,
nobody else
cool.
cared, right? It wasn't popular. Nobody even knew what that really meant. Unfortunately, as is usually the case, when Intel really wants something, they tend to get it, and because of that, VIA lost a lot of stature. And they've kind of made some ARM-based parts for a little while now. But if this rumor turns out to be true, that they're going to be the ARM-based SoC, they're going to make the ARM SoC that goes into a new Asus tablet, it'd be a pretty big deal for them. And my only kind of concern is this is supposedly a $99 to $150 Android tablet. And if VIA is maybe getting the contract purely on price rather than having some unique performance feature or something like that. And I just have no idea what this part would actually perform with, really.
So basically you're saying it could be a hot mess that was just the cheapest thing they could get on board and slam tablets out into the market at the most affordable price. It almost sounds like I'm smelling the Walgreens market here. You know what I mean?
Like this might be the Kmart special thing. Right. But it's, Asus has been, they've done a very good job of driving the price down of these devices. Yes. And what's interesting is that last year's CES, we saw this supposed $200 Tegra 3 based tablet, and it had some weird funky model name, and we were like, that's cool, when's it going to come out? And everybody was very vague about it. And then Google announced the Nexus 7, which was that exact same tablet. So Asus, right, they couldn't talk about it, but that's what it was. And I'm wondering if this will be something of the same scenario.
Well, one of the things Scott's points out in the article is cheap but good. Like I'm joking because some of the stuff you find behind the counter at Walgreens is actually pretty good. This is going to be a step above that, I believe. I shouldn't be so obnoxious. But it's interesting because I do like the idea of having more powerful processors available at the low end of the tablet market, because there's so much amazing stuff coming out of China in that like $100, like sub $100 to $100 to $200 range.
Right.
The other big challenge is the processor is actually, I think, less of a challenge than a really good screen in that price range, because people I've talked to have flat out said, a $100 tablet, you're getting a crappy screen with a decent CPU behind it. So it'll be really interesting to see what VIA and Asus can cook up together. Yep. Should we take a moment to talk about one last thing? Samsung Envelo and are doing SSD caching.
Envelo is the company that makes the software called Dataplex. And Dataplex is a SSD caching alternative to like Intel's RST. And it's software that has been bundled with the OCZ Synapse, the Corsair Accelerator, these 30 and 60 gig drives that are sold specifically as caching SSDs. So their software is kind of bundled with that idea. And I think like the OCZ Revo drive hybrid that has it's a PCI Express based SSD that actually has a 2.5-inch drive and an SSD on it. Like there's probably half dozen to a dozen SSD lines that use this Dataplex software. And what's cool about it is that you can do this after your Windows installation, right? So if you've already got your system, you can plug in a 60 gig SSD, install this software, tell it which SSD you want it to use, tell it which hard drive you want it to use, and you don't have to reinstall your operating system. You don't have to do anything like that. It's been pretty cool. It's not quite as good as it's obviously not as good as having an SSD as your main drive, but it's kind of a good hack fix to improving the performance of your PC on a normal day-to-day basis. So that software company, Envelo, was just acquired by Samsung, which puts into question a lot of things. Are these companies going to be able to sell it anymore? That was
the first question I was thinking. Like, oh dear, does this mean we're not going to? Will it no longer be accessible? Will it be at Samsung only? Will it require the purchase of a Samsung controller and/or memory chips?
Yeah, I think the current drives that are on the market will still stay in the market. I don't know what their contracts are, but I imagine that won't go away. They don't have to pull them off the shelves or anything like that. I would. It's one of the things we're going to ask while we're at CES is, what is it? Are you going to release another line of these caching SSDs, and are you going to have to find a different software solution? Alan had a very good point, though, that he said that in 18 months, maybe less than that, this software won't even matter because SSDs will have come down to the point where the idea of having a 60 gig SSD is kind of dumb. Why not go ahead and get a 250 or a 500 gig SSD and just make it your drive, right? Your system drive. And if that's the case, then so be it. But I'm still curious what Samsung wants to do with this software acquisition. I have a feeling that it's something in the enterprise market or something, along those lines that they're going to do that may be interesting or unique. I don't think they're just simply buying it to keep Dataplex off of its partners, off of its competitors' drives or something like that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I thought it was kind of one last article before we move on to our viewer questions. Title was Apple Kills a Kickstarter Project up on VentureBeat. And it was interesting. So the Portable Power Project, there's a group called Edison Jr. They're kind of one of those, they get a bunch of smart kids together. I should say smart adults that kind of play around where design and technology meet. And the Pop Portable Power Station raised like $139,000 on Kickstarter. And the idea is that we're going to have this fat, giant battery that would be able to power, charge or power all of your devices, whether it was your, Apple device or whether it was your Apple notebook or your iPod or your iPhone. And it was interesting. They wanted to do a lightning connector so it would be available for all of the new hardware as well as the old hardware, and Apple just flat out refused. They won't let you put a 30-pin connector with a lightning connector on the same device. And you might say, well, you can produce it without Apple, except that to actually use the lightning connectors, you need Apple's seal of approval so that they will release the bits and pieces you need to actually make the cables. Edison Jr. CEO, we are pissed. And then he says not nice things about Apple that we can't really repeat on a family-friendly show. But it was interesting that they wanted $50,000, they pulled like almost $140,000. Now they're returning all of the money because they just don't want to produce a product that will not deliver what they said it would deliver, which is kind of a shame. They're also starting some other stuff on there, but yeah, they wanted basically like 2 lightning chargers, 2 30 pins, along with 4 micro USBs, and I thought it was a shame, but it's nice of them. They're actually going to eat the cost of the credit card charges and possibly even the Kickstarter percentage in the process of giving all the money back to everybody. But that's a shame because that was a really cool idea. I'm always all for. I love big batteries.
Closed systems, guys.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was thinking. Is closed systems are cruel and unusual when you want something really, really badly. Yeah, so there's that.
Yep. What do you say we take a quick break here and talk about today's sponsor? This is actually kind of fits in with our theme of, oh no, I forgot to buy a Christmas gift for somebody. Maybe a young man or a gentleman or your father or your husband or whatever it happens to be. I think we have a pretty unique item and service that they're going to be interested in. Did you get your Bespoke Post box in? So did I. Did we get the same one?
If you decided to check this out, bespokepost.com/twit and a box of awesome. Uncover the best products you never heard of monthly. And there are services like this out there, but the idea is that you are going to get a box of goodies. It's a product subscription service targeted at men. You don't have to be a man to order it, but the idea is that they're going for a manly audience. You get an exclusive package from Bespoke Post with gadgets, gear, accessories, toys, tchotchkes, and it's basically they got a crew that just scours the planet moment by moment and trying to find really cool, unique products. For example, the Bespoke box that we got to check out, Ryan and I, included a towel, ostensibly a beach towel, but a beach towel made of linen and a spectacular pattern that was shocking and delightful and actually soaked up water. So it was stylish. It was not particularly trendy, but it was absolutely wonderful. And the idea is that you get a whole box of cool stuff showing up at your house each and every month. A box of awesome wrapped around a theme. If you're kind of curious what might be in one of these boxes, bespokepost.com/box/past is the website. Yep. Coffee kits, cocktail sets, shaving kit. But the idea is they pick a theme, they find a bunch of cool stuff, they throw it in a box, they send it to your house. And the cost is $45 per box, and Bespoke Post promises you that the contents will be worth well in excess of that. And because you're listening to the TWiT network, we can score you a fat 20% discount off your first box if you go to bespokepost.com/twit. Subscribe, get a monthly box of excellence.
I really do like the idea of once a month getting something that's kind of a surprise. They at the beginning of each month they let their members know their limited edition selection. They can opt out and not be charged for that box if it's something particular you don't want. But I like the idea of kind of these other people that are way more worldly and knowledgeable than I am about all these different topics and subjects and materials and all that kind of stuff going, you know what, here, learn about this. Be a little bit more cultured, Brian. Do stuff like that, right? And that's the idea I get from this type of service is that it's way better than getting like a fruit subscription, that is kind of a typical holiday thing, right?
Or that terrible ham. What they do is they give you a preview so you can say, no, I don't want it. But they did one that was really cool where they called it the Weekender, where they had a canvas, actually a nicely styled canvas utility bag, suede handles instead of the standard kind of beat up leather handles, a skincare kit, lounge passes for American Airlines, and some stylish glasses. So the idea is that you get a bundle of style and sophistication, and you don't have to hunt for it because it just automatically shows up in your box. And what they do is kind of nice is you can preview it, and if it doesn't sound like your kind of thing, you can say no and pass on it.
Which is very cool.
Much cooler than the record club.
That's and again, it's bespokepost.com/twit. BESPOKEPOST. Bespokepost.com/twit. 20% off your first box. I'm looking forward to this. I think I think it'll be interesting. I think it'll be fun. So maybe I'll report back what kind of we get on a monthly basis.
Yes, and we want to thank them for sponsoring This Week in Computer Hardware and remind you that it is bespokepost.com/TWIT. This is the moment where we ask for your viewer questions. Twitch, TWICH, at twit.tv. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, maybe you're hanging out with a friend, maybe you stumbled across it in a mad, mischievous search of the internet, you can find more of our episodes at twit.tv/twitch. And we're going to start out with an email from Russ about SSD performance. He says, I recently added a SanDisk Extreme solid-state drive to my desktop machine. While I've certainly seen big speed improvements over my old drive, the overall performance seems significantly slower than it should be. I see screenshots of benchmarks with my exact drive on Amazon with sequential, I hate my braces. Sequential read and write speeds. Cut to Ryan again because I want to see if we can get him actually laughing out loud. Sequential read and write speeds in the 400 to 500 megabyte per second range, but mine is only getting 190 to 100 sequential read and writes. It is connected to one of the SATA 3 ports on my board. I think the issue may be in my motherboard SATA 3 controller. I've got a somewhat low-end MSI P55A G55 LGA motherboard, but it apparently uses a Marvell controller for SATA 3. Based on my searching, it seems like there are some issues with that controller in general. What can I do to try to troubleshoot it? Would it require a new motherboard? Should I be happy with what I've got?
It's tough to be happy with what you've got when you see other people getting better performance numbers. His intuition is correct. The first generation of SATA 3 or SATA 6G controllers were oftentimes connected behind a slower PCI Express interface, one that could not match the speeds of SATA 6G, and it was kind of stupid, to be honest. But at the time when these first came out, there weren't SATA 3G available SSDs, and so they were just kind of putting it as a feature checkbox. And I believe it was Asus was one of the first motherboard companies to kind of point this out and say, "Hey, we're going to use a higher end PCI Express bridge to make sure our USB 3 and our SATA 6G are working at higher speeds." Without getting an external controller, you're not going to be able to get any faster than what you're getting on your system. You'd have to upgrade your motherboard or get like a third-party SATA 6G controller, which I don't think that's that big a deal. But to be honest, it kind of sucks to get 190 by 100 when other people are getting 500 megs. But if you can survive a little bit longer, keep that drive till your next upgrade cycle, whatever it happens to be, when you get a new motherboard, you'll have solved all of your problems there. I don't know if I would go spend any money just to get that performance gap closed, but I would say just expect that will be fixed on your next system when you take that SSD with you.
Well, let's say our gentle viewer is bored. Russ is in the computer store or browsing on the Amazon or Newegg or wherever he likes to shop, and he sees a PCI PCI Express SATA adapter. Are any of the SATA adapters PCI Express SATA adapters likely to deliver better performance than what's already on his motherboard?
Oh yeah, if you get a SATA, a PCI Express, serial ATA 6G controller, it will run faster if you're plugging it into a PCI Express by 4 slot or faster, by 4, by 8, or by 8 or by 16. So yeah, you'll be able to get higher speeds out of that, but then you're going to occupy one of your slots, and you may be spending anywhere from $30 to $60 for that extra device. When you'll be able to. Here's my issue: is you'll be able to benchmark it and get higher results. But I don't know if in his real world day-to-day usage, he will see a big difference. Unless he's doing a lot of file copies back and forth between things, which sometimes people do. We had a big issue with that today here. But, it's one of those things where there's always one device that's holding you back. And in this particular instance, it happens to be his motherboard. It's holding back the performance of other components in his system. So, but if you're comfortable with that, you want to spend $30, you don't care because you think it's going to be 2 years before you upgrade the rest of your PC, that's fine too. Yeah. I won't have any problem with that.
What I'd love to see if Russ buys a PCI Express SATA adapter, 6 gig adapter, or a new motherboard. And then I'd like to hear from Russ to see if, other than benchmarks, if he actually feels a difference.
Right.
because that's one of the things is all SSDs are so much faster than any traditional hard drive. Everything you should do should be, except for maybe like huge file copies. It's really hard to see a performance difference with the newest, fastest drives. Nathan says, "Hey guys, I love the show. I've got a first gen Core i7-920 overclocked to 3.5 gigahertz. I know the feeling. 6 gigabytes of RAM. He built back in 2009. I recently replaced the old Radeon HD 4890 with an EVGA GTX 670 for the win. Excuse me, FTW. 2 gigabytes of RAM, which I mildly overclocked as well. After doing some reading, there seems to be some debate on whether these first-gen i7s are up to snuff for these new whiz-bang GPUs. Thank you for letting me say whiz-bang GPU. My experience so far has been great with the new card, but I'm curious if I'm missing out on some performance with my i7-920. What do you guys think? Is my CPU the bottleneck when paired with my overclocked 670? I'm just jealous of having a card that nice.
You know, the i7-920. So this might shock you. Probably won't shock Patrick. Do you know when that processor came out?
2007?
No, 2008.
Okay,
came out
close.
in late 2008, actually. Quad-core, hyper-threaded, up to 2.9 gigahertz. He said he's got his overclocked. Higher end on the TDP, 45 nanometer, et cetera, et cetera. This is not holding you back. Is it as fast? What's that?
I was going to say, because it's like there are very few. I don't look at a lot of processors and think, gosh, it's time for me to upgrade my Core i7-920.
Yeah. It's still a really good part, and it's slower than the Ivy Bridge that's out today. It's slower than Sandy Bridge that's out today. And if you're going to do transcoding and you do a lot of video stuff, or you do a lot of encryption algorithm stuff on your hard drive, you would see a definite difference. If we're talking about just gaming, there might be a slight difference, but I think it's going to be slight. I don't think you need to feel rushed to upgrade your platform with your new graphics card. Would you see a little bit better performance? Maybe, but I don't think it's going to be dramatic. I mean, I used Nehalem in our CPU testbed until we got Sandy Bridge E, and I was very comfortable using that as a testbed where it's going to perform at almost the top end level you can get, right? Until the Sandy Bridge G systems came out, we just had another option. So I don't think that's going to be a big deal. I don't think your CPU is a bottleneck when paired with that.
Email from Filippo about our streaming setup question from last week. Just a quick note about the viewer having issues with streaming his Tribes Ascent gameplay. It says there's a key point you guys missed since you probably aren't familiar with that particular game. Tribes Ascent is an online game that needs quite a bit of upload bandwidth. If your viewer is playing the game and also streaming gameplay using the same internet connection, then he's more than likely saturating his upload bandwidth. This would explain why his frame rate doesn't drop, but game performance degrades significantly. As you know with Skype, if the upload link is laggy or very limited in bandwidth, you'll get terrible video quality. The same sort of a thing applies to gameplay. That's like Amway, but with Steam subscriptions. Please don't sue me, Steam. Don't cut me off, Steam.
Don't do that.
Make a little humor. Steam is awesome. What do you think?
So that's a good point. That was actually from 2 or 3 weeks ago. That was an issue, and I guess I never really thought about it. But if that game does require a lot, it could slow it down. But I can't imagine. I don't know. I haven't played that game in a long time. I don't know if the frame rate decreases or if he's seeing jumping around like in latency issues, kind of lag issues that you might get with online games too. Worth checking out.
Steve sends a quick email about a hardware reason to move to Windows 8. Quick one from a hardware and performance perspective only. What is the motivation to go to Windows 7 to Windows 8, if any? The faster boot would be nice, but not enough reason for me to upgrade, as boots are already quick thanks to my solid-state drive. Apologies if this has been covered in a previous episode. Thanks for the great podcast. It's a nice thing to say, Steve. Gosh, I mean, on one hand, if you don't want anything in Windows 8, and a lot of people don't, based on the anti-Metro whinging I run into a lot of places. They've done some interesting memory management modifications that reduces the amount of runtime memory it uses. I'm trying to think of I think they call it a start on demand model, where certain things, Windows Update, for example, only gets started when needed rather than constantly running all the time. Windows has had the ability to do that for a while, but it got much more serious in a way that kind of makes Unix users kind of laugh. But the idea is that in theory, it should do a better job of letting go of memory and not sitting on top of memory for various runtimes or basically different applications that are running inside of Windows 8. On one hand, that would be great. For example, if you have an older machine, this might give it a little bit of extra life. On the flip side, memory is so delete expletive cheap right now. For the cost of Windows 8, you could drop another 8 or 16 gigabytes of memory into your system, at least if you have a 64-bit compatible CPU, which hopefully you do if you're trying to run Windows 8 on it. It's if you've ever wanted to play around with touchscreens, Windows 7 touchscreen support was there, but it was atrocious. I have a powerful urge to load Windows 8 onto one of the older netbooks I have with an Atom CPU just to see what happens.
That'd be interesting. That'd be an interesting test, yeah.
Just to see if because those are obviously gated to 1 or 2 gigabytes of memory. That was kind of my chief complaint about netbooks, is that you had an interesting processor that couldn't do a lot of interesting things because it has such a craptastic amount of memory attached to it. And I'll lay that at the feet of Microsoft and Intel, and I'll whinge about that. But in a lot of cases, I don't think there's a lot of great hardware reasons to move to Windows 8. It's mostly the same drivers as Windows 7. A lot of the fundamental architecture for hardware hasn't changed a lot since Windows 7. And feel free to email Twitch, TWich at twit.tv if you think I'm missing all of the cool parts of Windows 8. And we will talk about that more in a future episode.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm going to let you read this one. The Magic Cans of Air. This may be the most excited I've seen you about an email in a long time, Ryan.
Well, okay, yeah, we'll discuss at the end. So this email comes in from David, who says, I was going about my business one sunny day when an unpleasant sound emanated from my laptop as it hit the floor. This was followed shortly by a trip to the friendly and completely legal local parts dealer. As the nice man behind the counter was installing my replacement screen, I noticed a wondrous device on the countertop. Close inspection of the label and some Googling uncovered this site, canlessair.com. Such an artifact beguiles me as I wish it to be the flawless answer to all my compressed air needs, but I am wary of this miracle coming to aught. My knowledge concerning compressed air is lacking, and I am unable to find reviews outside of Amazon. Guide me, oh twitchy ones. So this is a battery-powered, motorized air device, I guess. Thing.
Is this the Hurricane canless air system?
Correct. That is correct. And I went to their webpage and was immediately like, "Oh, I got to order one of these." And then I kind of went to the Amazon reviews and I saw the same thing that our reader here, David, our viewer, was talking about, and that's like some 2-star reviews talking about it doesn't have as much force as canned air. Yes, you can get hundreds of cans of air out of the life of this device, but it doesn't have the same force. That kind of bothers me, and other people are suggesting to get just like a regular compressor instead. Right. The product can be a little loud, apparently. That's like one of the regular compressors.
What, canned air isn't loud?
Well, canned air, yeah. But this little device has a motor in it that has to run. So I don't know how loud that will actually be. And I was thinking about, I'll just buy one of these to try it out. But they start at $80, and maybe not. I kind of want to try it. I don't know. I'm going to look through all these reviews tonight. I might need to get that one more order on Amazon.
One last order before I go.
Right.
Apparently today is the last day to order with free 2-day shipping, and then tomorrow is the last day to order with 1-day shipping. Metro Vacuum ED500 DataVac. If you are looking for something a little less expensive that has a lot of positive reviews, I think there should be a link in the notes for this, Burke, down at the bottom, the Amazon link. It's got 591 customer reviews. It's sitting at 4.5 stars, and it's clunky by comparison. Not the most elegant looking product. But we had a bunch of viewers on TechZilla turn us on to this. It's made out of steel. It's got a 500 watt 3/4 horsepower motor. Pulls like
AC
4.5 amps. But it's got a 70 cubic foot per minute airflow, and it's got sort of what they call the air concentrator nozzle. And the idea is that you have this. Well, it's the opposite of a vacuum in a lot of ways.
Right.
But the idea is that it's a compact 500 watt motor that blasts air, and it's got 591 reviews, sitting at 4.5 stars.
That's pretty good.
I think Robert Heron bought one of these after reading this. Yeah, 464 5-star reviews, 89 4-star reviews.
There's a video review of somebody cleaning out their dirty computer case.
Yeah,
it's just really good.
I pulled as part of putting in the new furnace in the house. To save some money, I pulled the old furnace and ductwork out, and one of the most disgusting things I've seen in years is the way they permanently mounted an air filter. Like literally, you had to get on your hands and knees in the crawl space, crawl 30 feet back, and undo like 12 screws and disassemble the return air duct to get to where they put the air filter in there. Not a really great quote solution, unquote. And I literally found 3/4 of an inch of gray stuff on what must be like a 35-year-old air filter.
I will say a quick recommendation: whichever one of these solutions you buy, watching this video on Amazon, do not blow on your fans unless you stabilize the fan blades so that they don't spin.
Yeah,
you can break the bearings on your fans that way if you get them to spin faster than they're supposed to spin with 70 cubic feet per minute.
What I really want to do is
I will probably buy this instead now, but it's not as cool as the idea of having they even sell like a holster for your belt that you can pull out, the battery operated one.
You know what? You can go to Tandy Leathercraft and you can get yourself some leather, and you can make yourself a really cool holster.
You got to be plugged into the wall. You're tethered at that point.
You say tethered, I say fully powered.
I agree. I remember the first time when I was when I was building the deck on the back of my house, where I borrowed somebody's AC powered drill as opposed to the battery powered drills that I had at the time, and the world of difference that makes is dramatic. So
when you're using a 3/4 inch spade bit through treated lumber, all of a sudden you understand the glories of having 20 or 15 amps at 120 volts on tap, because the motor, it does not bog down.
Right.
I think we've gone far enough off the beaten path at this point. So we got a couple options for cleaning out your PC or dusting off anything in your house, or just frightening the cat from 40 feet away. What's coming up on PC Per this week? Are you guys going to sort of settle down till the new year, or are you keeping the articles coming?
We're settling down a little bit, but mostly in preparation for CES. It's not really our fault. There's a lot less. Everybody kind of goes into shutdown mode over the holidays, so you're not going to see new releases from AMD or Intel or NVIDIA or anything like that until we get to CES. We have some of our mobile device reviews that are still coming up. We have like a Corsair Neutron SSD review, MSI Z77 Empower review that's coming up over the next week, and then we'll do what we're going to do. We'll still have a podcast next week and all that other kind of stuff, and see what news there is to talk about. We may just have to drink and tell jokes instead if there's no news, but we'll do what we can.
We do an all-viewer question show.
There you go.
TechZilla has been kind of fun. We pre-shot a couple shows for over the Christmas, New Year's break. We did a whole collection of TEKZILLA.com. We did a whole collection of last-minute geek gifts. Veronica just did a gaming heads-up roundup, including the new A50 from Astro, which it pained me to hand back to her. It's so nice. We've got a collection of free Windows disk imaging tools that work. I mentioned the Lenovo Idea Center all-in-one Windows 8 PC, and some good deals on home theater shopping. And if you're looking for a last-minute home theater, basically we got a great recommendation for an Onkyo all-in-one home theater in a box. We talk about, of course, Robert Heron picked his best HDTVs of 2012. Nice. Our top Blu-rays of 2012 if you want to show off your home theater system. So it's been an exciting couple of weeks at TechZilla, and
cool.
We too That's one of the meeting I was in right before this was our last, not quite our last before Christmas CES meeting, planning around CES and what's going to be going on down there.
Nice.
And I think that's it for this week in computer hardware. We'll see you next week. I'm Patrick Norton.
I'm Ryan Shrout.
We'll see you next week on Twitch. Did it just lock up again, or was that me?
No. I was just dramatically pausing for you to input.
Let me close the chat room, because apparently the chat room distracted me. I'm sorry, chat room.
They do, everybody.
Yeah, so Ryan, make sure you Twitch constantly the whole time so that we know your video is still active. Thank you.
I'm just going to... I'll blink real heavy so you guys know.
It's the most wonderful time of the year. Bandwidth is choking and hosts are confused. 3. Should I come up with my dramatic response, or should we pick it up again and give Tony a clean edit? That's the
all right. Ready for that dramatic response? And such good timing because Ryan just locked up.
Nice. I like it. Are you sure I'm locked up? Oh,
wait,
look,
Ryan is not impressed.
Hang on. My bandwidth spiked up too.
Screen cap that.
That's so weird. And right on cue, my bandwidth has gone up to about the 500 kilobytes per second again, upstream.
Hey, Russell, are you listening?
Sort of. What?
Oh, just...
Now let me see if it gets better because it's kind of coming back down. Well, maybe it's not. But I mean, I was in the 200s, 2 to 250K up to you, and then right when that happened, we spiked up to like 450, and and now it's coming back down. Yeah, now I'm back in the 200s again, and my video seems fine. God, Skype. If you charge me $10 Skype, I will pay that if you fix everything. I just ordered that stupid vacuum. Nice. That brought my orders of 2012 up to 59, matching my 2011 count.